Hey everyone. So today is Friday. I think it's May 27th. Um, we are in Cuba and we just finished the alternative around the closed national forest for the first section. And that was from Grants, New Mexico to Cuba, New Mexico. And the first 3 days were a road walk. The second 2 days were actually hiking on the CDT proper, like the actual trail. So I want to say that 5 or 6 days ago, I made a video and said we're going to try to walk around the closure and keep on walking across New Mexico. And I think I may have been scant on the details, just because I didn't know if it was going to work, and it makes more sense to actually describe after the fact because I'll have more details and answers. So essentially, Heavy D, Mouse, Marty, and myself, we decided we wanted to have continuous footprints from the border to Canada. So we decided to road walk partially out of Grants to get around Mount Taylor and the closed national forest. What we did is there's a trail angel in Grants, New Mexico. His name's Hugo, and he's been helping hikers for a while. I think he's an older retired gentleman, and he had kind of gotten away from helping hikers, or he wasn't helping them as much because he had other things going on. But he agreed to essentially drive. He could take three of us, so he took Heavy D, Mouse, and Marty, and they drove out and they dropped off 2 water caches with I think 2 gallons per person, so 8 gallons. And then we had a bag of oranges at each of the caches. And these caches were basically just next to a road. The first road, or the first cache, was paved road. And the first, I would say, day and a half of the road walk was paved. After that, the second cache was on a dirt road. And when Hugo drove the folks out, he essentially asked multiple times, "Are you sure you want to come out this way? There's nothing out here." And the answer was yes. So we encountered many people who stopped and asked us if we were okay, if we were lost, if we needed anything, any water, anything, which was really nice. We actually had a few instances of genuine trail magic, where people gave us, I think we got a couple of Cokes, and we got like a Powerade and some water, like bottled water. And then a few of the people actually took the water jugs from us. So in our water cache, we put 8 gallons, and then we had to carry those gallons with us because we didn't want to litter. And there's no place to put any trash. There were no businesses out where we went. It was all residential, and there was some businesses, but they were mining and ranching, and so there was really no trash cans or opportunities to interact with people or buy things that we needed. So the second day we got on the unpaved road, and we kept on walking around Mount Taylor in the National Forest. And the third day, we continued on the unpaved road and got back to the CDT. Now, the reason why we could hike the CDT, or a portion of it, is because I think it's like 55 miles of it is not in the National Forest between Grants and Cuba. It is actually, I think, in Bureau of Land Management land, or maybe some private land or something along those lines. So we hiked 3 days on the road. We got around the National Forest and Mount Taylor. We reconnected with the CDT, and the last 2 days we actually got to hike on the CDT proper. And that was about, I think, 45 miles. So the road walk in total for the 3 days was 69 miles. And then I think the trail was like 44 or 45 miles, something along those lines. It was, I think the total mileage was like 114 miles, if I'm doing that math correct. We did 21-mile day the first day, and it rained on us. So it was the first day we got rain. At least I have gotten rain in the first 26 days of the trail. Now 30 days. And the second day was actually cool. It was in the 70s. So the first 2 days for a road walk, we had cloud cover for most of the day, and then it rained on us, so we had to stop for 21 miles. The second day we hiked or walked 23 miles on the road, and 70-degree weather, which was lovely. And then the third day we walked 25 miles to get back on the CDT proper, and that's where our water was. So the first 2 water caches gave us water on the first 3 days, and then at the end of the third day we got back to the CDT, and there happened to be a water source just like 2/10 of a mile off the trail, and it had water. So we filled up there. Our next water sources from the one when we got back on the CDT were 13 miles and 29 miles respectively from that source. And so the next day we hiked 13 miles to the water source, filled up, and continued walking. I think yesterday was 25 miles, and then today was like 19 miles to get into Cuba. So that is how we finished the road walk. It was a combination of a trail angel helping us put water caches, us basically having to cache water to make sure we had it at certain points, and then a little bit of a fortune that the water sources on the CDT were still flowing. Now the next steps that were in Cuba is one last point. So the road walk that we did compared to the CDT proper, if we'd gone through the national forest and near Mount Taylor, would have been a difference of only 9 miles. So we did not lose or gain much by taking the alternative. That changes. And the reason why it changes is because the road walk from Cuba to Chama is 3 days. If we were hiking, and it's 75-ish miles, if we were hiking it, it would take, I didn't look up the math or numbers, but I think it's 3 and 4, I think it'd be like 7 or 8 miles, or excuse me, 7 or 8 days, if we were actually taking the CDT proper from Cuba to Chama, because we'd actually go through the national forest, and we'd have another a resupply before we got to Chama. In this case, we're only doing 3 days straight on the road, no resupply. It's just 75 miles of hard road walking. We got a little bit of fortune today where someone has actually done their road walk, and they posted the information on the 2022 CDT page, and they said this is what route we took and this is what we encountered. And based on our research, like Marty and Heavy D and Mouse, their route actually matched up exactly to what the person who posted on the 2022 page posted. The difference was they've already hiked it, and so we had found a couple water sources that we were going to use, and they were able to say, hey, this water source, it's good. Hey, that second water source you're planning on, it's not good. However, here's an alternative water source like 2 miles away. And the water sources were going to be 13 miles in and 50 miles in, and those were our 2 water sources. The folks that hiked it before said, hey, there actually is another water source at mile like 25 or 24, I think. So that means we don't have to hike it with as much water, which is great. And it breaks up like the 13 to 50, so we don't have to carry 37 miles worth of water. They also suggested an alternative, I guess, that they took, which is just a slight variation, and there's convenience stores like gas stations and stuff on the slight variation, which means we can get water. So over the next 3 days we'll be road walking approximately 75 miles. A lot of it may be on a gravel road because Google doesn't want to take us on that route, which means that Google tends to avoid unpaved roads. So we'll see what happens, and when we get to Chama, again, it's Heavy D, Mouse, and Marty, myself. But once we get to Chama, I'll recap those 3 days just like I recapped today for the Grants to Cuba walk, and you can hear the details of how we pulled it off. I haven't showered yet. I got to go shower, and then we're gonna take off in the morning to get this going and finish up this long road walk. And then once we get to Chama, we get back on the CDT proper. The snow is melting fast in Colorado, so you still need ice axe and micro spikes just for safety, but apparently the snow levels and the avalanche danger are low, and people have been entering the San Juans, and I think it's one hiker who's hiked the CDT. This is his third time. Said it seems like it's like a once in a 10-year low snow year, or at least how quickly it's melting off. So we could suddenly find ourselves in Chama on the 31st of May and entering, like taking a day or two just to kind of shift out gear, because I'm gonna have to change out some gear, and I think I'm gonna have to replace a couple things. So I may take it like an extra 0 day, so 2 0 days, but that I'll still be ahead by I think I'll still be ahead by like 4 or 5 days of the original schedule, because I was planning on being in Colorado like the second week of June, not June 1st or the end of May. So more to come. Unfortunately, in Cuba, there's not Wi-Fi at the motel, so you folks aren't going to see this for a few days, but I'll post multiple videos once I get to Chama, so you can get all caught up. I did hit a milestone yesterday. I passed 500 miles yesterday, so that's a big thing. We are going to lose a lot of mileage with this 3-day road walk, so I believe New Mexico is supposed to be like between 700 and 800 miles. If you do the Gila alternative, it takes about 100 off, which I already planned that I was going to have 100 off. But I think the 3-day road walk we're about to take it could potential another 100 miles. I'll have to do the math. So I could actually get across New Mexico in, I think it's going to be about 600 miles rather than between 700 and 800. I do want to come back and hike the CDT proper through the National Forest once it opens back up, but for right now, I'm just doing what I'm doing to get the feet, the steps continuous from New Mexico to Canada. I will have a gap of steps, and it's a known gap. Like the CDT actually hikes up to I think Cumbria Pass. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'll look it up. In Colorado, and then you take like ride into Chama, resupply, and then go back to the pass. Because the CDT's closed, we don't get to hike to the pass. So there is actually a train that runs up and over the pass as kind of a touristy thing, I believe. And I think you can pay a fee and they'll drop CDT hikers off at the pass. And so my original plan was actually out of Chama to take the train back to the pass. Is just something fun because I've ridden like the narrow gauge and a few other trains in Colorado, and it's kind of fun to ride them all. So I may have a gap of like 12 miles in steps just because I'm taking the train out of Chama, or I hope to, but I'm not concerned about that, because once I come back and actually hike the CDT proper in New Mexico, then my steps will be continuous from Grants to the pass. So, all right, I think that's it. I will give a huge shout out to the people and the towns that we travel through. A lot of people understand the CDT and the hiking, and a lot of people understand what it takes, and a lot of people want to offer help. And so in the 3-day road walk we're about to take, there's a couple who've opened up their ranch to help people, allow them to camp and get water, and we wouldn't be able to do this 3-day road walk without them. We'd be sleeping on the side of the road again without water unless we set up a cache. So That's just one example of the many people who want to help CDT hikers, especially when things go awry. And so, huge shout out to them. We couldn't do these alternatives without them. I will say, so the grants to Cuba alternate that we just took, the road walk, Marty decided to name it, and he named it the Shackleton alternate. So Shackleton was one of the polar explorers. I think there were 3 people, if I remember correctly, trying to race to get to the South Pole first. And Shackleton, if I remember the story correctly, his ship was crushed by ice, and he and some of his fellow sailors got into one of their boats. I don't know if it was a lifeboat or if it was a boat made for rowing on the sea, but they basically rowed to an island and then hiked across the island to a fishing village. They got a ship and went down and rescued the rest of the crew. So the fact that it was kind of a wayward way to get back from the South Pole, I think Marty kind of liked that, so he named it the Shackleton alternate. So yeah, that's finished, and now just 3 more days of road walking. So I know this is a longer video, just getting in the recap and whatnot now that we're in Cuba. So I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. I'm gonna go take a shower, and we'll see you in a few days once we get into Chama.